The first time Marcus Wellington held his son, he felt nothing but disgust, not because the child was unwanted, though he was, but because the baby's skin was several shades darker than his own pale complexion. In that sterile hospital room, with fluorescent lights humming overhead and the scent of antiseptic burning his nostrils, Marcus made a decision that would haunt him for years to come. He turned his back on the tiny, innocent life reaching for him with miniature fingers, and walked away without a second glance. Marcus Wellington was everything money could buy, but nothing a soul could cherish. At 42, he had built an empire in commercial real estate that stretched across 3 states, owned a mansion in Connecticut that resembled a modern-day palace, and drove cars that cost more than most people's homes. His divorce from his socialite wife had been finalized 2 years prior, leaving him bitter, cynical, and convinced that everyone wanted something from him. He trusted no one, loved nothing, and believed that wealth was the only measure of a person's worth. Elena Rodriguez had come into his life quietly, the way morning light slips through curtains, unnoticed until suddenly, the room is bright. She was his housekeeper, a soft-spoken woman from Honduras who sent most of her earnings back home to support her aging mother and younger siblings. She had kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled, and she moved through Marcus's cold, marble-floored mansion with a grace that seemed out of place among all that calculated luxury. She never asked for anything beyond her modest salary, never complained about the long hours, and treated Marcus's home with more care than he did himself. Their affair had been brief and reckless, born from loneliness on both sides during a particularly harsh winter. Marcus had been drinking too much, grieving losses he wouldn't name, and Elena had been there, warm, gentle, understanding. For 3 months, they existed in a bubble that neither acknowledged during daylight hours. Then Elena discovered she was pregnant, and the bubble burst with devastating force. Marcus's response had been immediate and cruel. He accused her of trying to trap him, of deliberately getting pregnant to secure a financial future. He offered her money for an abortion, and when she refused on moral grounds, he offered her a larger sum to disappear. Elena, heartbroken but dignified, took only what she was owed in final wages and left his mansion with her head held high, determined to raise her child alone. 9 months later, Marcus received a single text message from an unknown number. "Your son was born today. I thought you should know. I won't contact you again." He deleted it without responding and buried himself deeper in work, in acquisitions and mergers, in anything that would prevent him from thinking about the choice he'd made. 3 years passed like water through his fingers, quickly, coldly, leaving nothing behind but emptiness. Marcus's empire grew, but so did the hollow feeling in his chest that no amount of success could fill. He stopped socializing altogether, fired staff members for minor infractions, and developed a reputation as a recluse who trusted no one. His sister, Catherine, was the only person who still tried to reach him, though their conversations were increasingly strained. It was Catherine who finally forced the confrontation that would change everything. She appeared at his mansion one autumn afternoon without warning, her face set with determination. "I know about Elena," she said without preamble, standing in his foyer like an avenging angel. "I know about your son, and I know what you did." Marcus felt his blood run cold. "That's none of your business." "You're my brother, which makes it my business. That child is my nephew, Marcus. He's family." Catherine's voice cracked with emotion. "Elena never asked you for a dime. She's been working 2 jobs to support that little boy. I found her by accident at the grocery store last month. She was buying the cheapest formula because that's all she could afford. Do you know what that feels like? Knowing my brother is a millionaire while his own child goes without." Marcus turned away, jaw clenched. "I don't know that the child is even mine." "Then take a DNA test. Prove it, but I think you're just a coward who's afraid of being human." Catherine threw something onto his marble console table, a photograph. "That's Mateo, your son. Look at him, Marcus. Really look at him." After she left, Marcus stood frozen in his empty mansion for a long time before his feet carried him to the table. He picked up the photograph with trembling hands, and his world tilted on its axis. The child in the picture was beautiful. Mateo had Elena's warm brown skin and generous smile, but he had Marcus's exact Eyes, that unusual shade of gray-green that Marcus had, inherited from his own father. The boy was playing in what looked like a small, modest apartment surrounded by a few well-worn toys. His face lit up with pure joy as he hugged a stuffed dinosaur nearly as big as himself. But it was what Marcus noticed in the background that broke, something open inside his chest. A small framed photo on a shelf, partially visible, that appeared to be from the one weekend Marcus and Elena had spent together outside the mansion before everything fell apart. She had kept it. After everything he'd done, she'd kept a memory of him in their son's home. Marcus's hands shook so badly he nearly dropped the photograph. The baby's skin color that had so repulsed him in the hospital suddenly seemed absurd, meaningless. This wasn't just any child. This was his son. Carrying his father's eyes, his grandfather's smile that Marcus suddenly recognized. How had he been so blind? How had he let something as superficial as skin tone matter more than the blood connection? The human connection? For the first time in 3 years, Marcus Wellington cried. He sank onto his Italian leather sofa in his perfectly decorated, perfectly empty mansion and wept for the time he'd lost, for the cruelty he'd inflicted, for the innocent child who'd never done anything wrong except exist. The next morning, Marcus did something he hadn't done in years. He sought help. He called a therapist his sister had recommended repeatedly. He made an appointment with a lawyer, not to escape responsibility, but to understand how to properly provide for his son. And he wrote a letter to Elena, one he rewrote 17 times before it felt remotely adequate, asking not for forgiveness, but for the chance to at least support the child financially, to be part of Matteo's life in whatever capacity she deemed appropriate. Elena's response came 2 weeks later, a handwritten note that was brief but not unkind. You can meet him, but you need to earn the right to be called his father. That's not a title money can buy. Their first meeting was arranged for a Saturday afternoon at a public park, neutral ground. Marcus arrived 30 minutes early, sick with nervousness, rehearsing what he might say. When Elena appeared pushing a stroller with Matteo walking beside her, Marcus's breath caught. The boy was even more beautiful in person, chattering happily about the ducks he wanted to feed, completely unaware of the monumental nature of this meeting. Matteo, Elena said gently, kneeling beside her son. This is Mr. Marcus. He's my friend and he'd like to meet you. Those gray-green eyes turned toward Marcus with innocent curiosity. Do you like ducks? Matteo asked seriously. Marcus found himself kneeling on the grass, his expensive suit forgotten. I do, he managed, his voice rough. I like them very much. Could you show me your favorites? What followed was the most humbling experience of Marcus Wellington's life. For 2 hours, he followed a 3-year-old around a park, learning the names of different ducks, admiring pine cones that Matteo declared were special treasures, and gradually earning the cautious trust of a little boy who had every reason to have no use for him.